Alright, welcome back. It's not tier list Tuesday, it's Wildcard Wednesday. Very clever, I know. Shout out to ChatGPT for helping with that title. But we're gonna just do a tier list of the teams that have pressure to make the playoffs this year, specifically, and get into a wildcard spot. We're not going to use all these logos, obviously, because not everyone is competing for a wildcard spot. We're going to take a look at the teams that are fighting both the East and the Western Conference to try to get the last playoff spot. Basically, only the second wildcard spot is up for grabs still between like a whole host of teams. So we're going to just tier list who has the most pressure of making the playoffs this year and grabbing that last wildcard spot. So we're not going to use every logo, obviously. So let's just start in the East. So Ottawa, right now as I'm recording this, they have a pretty good margin of points ahead of the second wildcard spot and the first wildcard spot pretty comfortably, so we're going to not include them. But let's just go in order of the standing. So right now Montreal has the second wildcard spot with 73 points, one ahead of the Rangers. I'd say have a little pressure, not really. They're still a super young team. They have so many prospects still to even like debut, like Ryan Backer and Demidov. They haven't even played an NHL game yet, so there's really honestly might even be no pressure. Yeah, no pressure, because the fact that they're in this playoff race right now is like already a good sign of that they're developing. And their young guys like Slavkovsky is taking a step. Blaine Hudson is having a really good rookie season. So I think it shows like good development by the team overall. They've been getting solid goaltending from their young goalies. Yeah, I'd say there's no pressure for them to make it. The fact that they are in the hunt right now is already a good sign. Then the Rangers, they probably have the most pressure, honestly. They won the President's Trophy last year, I'm pretty sure. Alright, and everyone thought they were locked to make the playoffs. Definitely the playoffs. Probably maybe even a chance to repeat as President's Trophy winners and compete for a cup. But now they're competing for a playoff spot. Like, that's kind of crazy. They weren't supposed to be in this position, so they definitely have a lot of pressure to make the playoffs. I'm pretty sure they traded this year's first? They traded for JT Miller. It's like top 12 protected, something like that. So there's a lot of pressure for them to make it, because they're in win now mode, and all their veterans are getting up there, like Panarin and Kreider and Zibanejad. And you want to keep Shesterkin happy. You just signed long term, so you don't want to miss the playoffs. And the Islanders, I don't know, kind of somewhat pressure. Like everyone expects them to fall off every year and like miss the playoffs. They're an easy team to pick as a team to miss the playoffs, but then they make it somehow. But they also sold at the deadline. They traded away Nelson for like futures, which is good. I mean, he's a pending UFA, so you might as well do that. You're not guaranteed a playoff spot right now. They said 3 points back out of a playoff spot. So I mean, the fact that they sold definitely alleviates a lot of pressure. But they're also like, they're kind of in no man's land. Like, nobody really knows what to think of them. Yeah. So I'd say there's like a little pressure, but like it's not gonna be the end of the world, I think. Columbus, I feel like there's no pressure. Is there a little pressure? I think before the season, obviously with the passing of Gaudreau, nobody really had like expectations for them, just because like, you know, it's a big tragedy. I'm sure the players are going through it, the team and staff is going through it, so there wasn't really like pressure to compete, you know. But the fact that they were in a playoff spot for like a good last like 2 weeks or so, they were in a playoff spot in the second wild card, but now they kind of lost a few games in a row here, and now they're outside looking in. I don't even know what to say. Like, they're a good team, but I wouldn't really say there's that much pressure, honestly, for them to make it. Maybe a little, just because they made it this far and that they're this competitive right now, when people thought they weren't going to be. So maybe, okay, you know, pressure's on now, because now people think they're a bit of a more competitive team than we all thought they were. So I'll say a little, but not really, honestly. If they don't make it, then like No one's gonna be angry. I feel like their fan base is pretty understanding. Red Wings, yeah, they feel like they have to be there. I feel like they have to be up there. I think they've like, what is it, 8 years they missed? I think last time they made it was 2017. So it will be 8 years, I'm pretty sure. If that math is correct, something like that. But yeah, everyone says, keep believing the Eyes are plan, but these Red Wings fans are getting impatient. My good buddy Af is getting impatient. He wants to see the team make the playoffs. I want to see the team make the playoffs too. I like Raymond. I like Larkin. That's it. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I think like the young guys have kind of like shown. They have a lot of young guys, but they've kind of made the NHL now. Like Casper. I mean, they still have a lot of guys coming up too. But yeah, but I think those fans are getting a bit restless of not making the playoffs. I mean, last year they only didn't make the playoffs because of like a tiebreaker with Washington, which kind of sucks for them. Shows right there, or it shows that they were right there. But this year they were comfortable in a comfortable wildcard spot, but they kind of fell off in the past few weeks, and now they're outside looking in. They're outside by 3 points. So I think there's a lot of pressure to make it this year, and if they don't make it this year, I think it's gonna be. Maybe Yzerman gets like 1 more year and then he loses. If they don't make it next year, he might get fired. You never know. But I think management trusts the Yzerman, but they're taking their sweet time to make the playoff. That's for sure. And then Boston, I don't know. They traded Marchand. They sold at the deadline. They sold a lot. They sold Frederick, Carlo, Marchand, someone else. I think I'm forgetting. So, but they're like always expected to compete. I guess that before the season started, there was pressure because they signed Lindholm and Zadorov to those big contracts, which did not work out, and they're only in year 1. Sad, but the fact they sold, I think there's not that much pressure anymore. They're like 4 points back, so it's a bit of a steeper hill for them to climb. I'll say there's a little pressure, but honestly, I don't. I think at this point, Bruins fans are not going to be surprised if they don't make it. Like it's not. It's probably not in the cards for them this year. And those are kind of all the teams that are competing for the Eastern wildcard spot. And then there's really only 4 teams for the West. Vancouver. Do they have the most pressure? They didn't sell at the deadline. Like Brock Besser is a UFA, pending UFA, and they didn't trade him. When it's looking like he won't re-sign with the Canucks. I think Canucks offered him a contract extension and he didn't sign it. I think he wanted more money or more term or something. So they could have sold him, but he didn't, or they didn't. I'll say there's a lot of pressure. They won their division last year, so everyone's expecting them to. They were expecting them to be top 3 in the Pacific with the Oilers and probably the Golden Knights or Kings, but they are kind of struggling. I mean, they had a lot of off-ice issues too with Pettersson and Miller, and then Pettersson has not been playing good at all. I think he's picked it up recently, but when the first 70% of the season, he was not playing, he was not living up to his contract, especially when Miller was there, and then they traded Miller. They got an okay return. I think Heedle is good, and then some other stuff they got, which is not bad. I think they got decent value for Miller at the time of the trade. But I'm getting sidetracked here. I think there's still pressure for them to make the playoffs, given what they did last year. They made it to Game 7 of the second round, and then in the offseason they're expected to make the playoffs. And that fan base, once they get a taste of the playoff, they're expecting next year they better win the cup or something. So I think there's still pressure for them to make it, but not the most pressure, because I don't think a lot of people would be too surprised if they miss, but they're right there. So I think the pressure is on to at least get in. Blues, I don't know. I think not that much. I think kind of with the Islanders, no one really knows what to expect from the Blues. They're kind of just a no man's land. They're definitely not anywhere close to being bad enough to tank, but they're also not a really good team where they should be top 3 in their conference, or even for like, they're like kind of maybe like in between of like Wildcard and getting a lottery pick. But I'm gonna say somewhat pressure now, just because they are tied with the Canucks for that second wildcard spot, and they have a pretty good chance to make it. Unfortunately, Holloway and Broberg have looked really good this year. I'm an Oilers fan, by the way. Holloway's looked really good this year. I'm actually happy for him. I love Holloway. I wish he was still on the Oilers. But I don't think there's that much pressure on them to make it. Like, I guess because they're this close now, this deep into the season, it's probably pressure for them to win some games. But I think if they miss, like, it's gonna, Blues fans are gonna be like, oh, that's okay, next year, right? And they have some good prospects in the system too, so it's not like they're in win now mode or anything, or they need to make it now because they have veterans. Like, their core is still pretty young, Thomas, Kyrou, Holloway, other guys, and they have like pretty good prospects coming up too, so it's not like they need to make the playoffs, but I'm sure it'd be nice for like that core to experience a cup run, or experience some playoff games, I should say. Calgary, I feel like there's honestly, before the season, I think I wasn't really I honestly thought Calgary was gonna be a bad team before the season, I'm not gonna lie. Not because I hate them or anything, but like, I didn't think their roster was that good. They sold Markstrom, their starting goaltender, to New Jersey. So I think people were expecting them to be a little bit worse, or definitely worse than last year, but maybe not lottery, but definitely not make the playoffs. So I think the fact that they're kind of surprising everyone at the fact they're even competing, making it so that they don't really have pressure to make it, because if they miss, it's gonna be like, okay, that's kind of what was expected of them. And their team is young, kind of. Like, Dustin Wolf's a rookie, so, and he's looked great. He's probably like the main reason they're even in a spot. He has like really good numbers this year for a goaltender, especially for a rookie goaltender. Like there's no pressure for them to make it because he'll have another 20 years to play in the league. So yeah, they could probably use another lottery pick, honestly, or a high draft pick. They don't have like that future like superstar player. So I feel like there's not really that much pressure if they miss. I'm sure Flames fans would love to see them in the playoffs, but I'm sure there's also a good number of them would like to see them get another high draft pick and kind of add to their prospect pool. And then last team that's competing would be Utah. Again, I don't know. They've missed the playoffs for quite a bit, and then when they were in Arizona, they were kind of just spinning their wheels. They weren't really progressing. But now the first year they progress is when they moved to Utah, so that kind of sucks for Coyotes fans. But how many years have they missed? They made the playoffs in 2020, but it's kind of like an asterisk because they want to play in round and kind of got screwed. Or not screwed, but they kind of got demolished in that first round. So they thought they were better than what they actually were. So I don't really know what to think. I feel like there's not really that much pressure. I mean, maybe a little somewhat pressure. First year in Utah, you want to look good to management and all that stuff, or like the owners. Like, this is gonna be a competitive team, and they're actually a team to be taken serious. But I want to say there's a lot of pressure because they still have like a lot of prospects coming up too. They have they're a pretty good prospect pool, and there's still a lot of guys that have still to debut. It's not like their team is like super old too. Like, Keller is only 26, 27, I think. Even 25, I'm not sure. So they're not like super old. Their core is like super young, with like Cooley and Keller and other guys that I can't think of at the moment. So I wouldn't say there's like a lot of pressure for them to win right now, or make the playoffs even. I think the fact that they're this deep into this season and they're in a hunt for a playoff spot is already like good progress. Kind of same with what I said about Montreal, but Montreal's kind of more there isn't nearly as much pressure on Montreal as there would be on Utah. Just different circumstances, I'm sure. Utah is a bit older than Canadians, but yeah. But yeah, it's kind of what I think about all the teams that are in the wild card race right now. So I think Rangers kind of have a lot of pressure on them. Rangers and Red Wings have the most pressure, I would say. Then Canucks, and then Islanders, Blues, Utah, Columbus, Boston, and Montreal and Calgary. So that's kind of how I see the wild card picture right now, with all these teams in the hunt. The teams I think will make it in the end, so one for East. Looking at it, like right now, Montreal has 73 points. Then it's Rangers with 72, and then Islanders, Blue Jackets, and Red Wings all have 70. And everyone has like roughly the same amount of games played right now. So I think I don't think Islanders will get it. I think not the Red Wings. I think they've. I don't know. It's hard to see them like pick up the pace. I might say the Rangers. Honestly, I think that they'll be able to get it, squeak it in. Pause. Resume. I think they'll be able to squeak in, but I could see it coming down between Rangers and Canadians. Yeah, I can see that. But who? Yeah. So I think the Rangers make it. But if I had to pick a team I wanted to make, I think it'd be pretty cool to see like the Canadians make it, just because the atmosphere would be pretty sweet in the playoffs. I remember like as a kid watching them in the playoffs, and that arena was just going crazy. But I would also wouldn't mind if Columbus made it, just because all they went through in the summer with passing of Goudreau. I think it'd be real nice for that fan base to experience something good. After like a difficult summer, they make the playoffs. It's kind of like an underdog story. I feel like no one's gonna be rooting against them too. And then Red Wings, it would be nice to see that fan base get rewarded with some playoffs after like a long time. But yeah, and then in the West, who I want to make it, I kind of want Utah to make it. Honestly, I think it'd be cool to have like the first year team make it in the playoffs for their like inaugural season. I think that'd be pretty exciting, especially for that fan base. But I think I'm not sure how Coyotes fans will feel about that. I feel like they're pretty indifferent that their team moves to Utah and they finally make the playoffs. Might be a bit heartbreaking for them. I also wouldn't mind the Blues. Like, I don't dislike the Blues. Only reason I want the Blues to make it is because I like Holloway. But that's not really a huge factor. I think I would pick Utah if I wanted to make it. Oh, did I say who I think would make it? I think St. Louis will make it. I think their team is pretty good. They're pretty underrated. I feel like they can pull it together, and Binnington has showed that, in like high stakes games he can perform. He showed that at Four Nations with Canada, that gold medal game. That overtime was insane. So I think Blues will make it. I think the Rangers will make it. But if I want, for the teams I want to make it, probably be Canadians and Utah. And this has been my Wildcard Wednesday video. Thanks for watching. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. And hopefully I make more Tier List Tuesday videos. And maybe if I do them on different days of the week, I can change the lettering. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.